Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to More Talks from Thomas More University, where we present short, powerful talks devoted to spreading ideas, thoughts, and information to our community. I am Michael Orr. I'll be hosting for today. I'm very excited to introduce our guests today. I just have a couple of quick notes before we get started. First, I want to remind you that this More Talk is being recorded, and a final recording will be made available on Thomas More University's Moreover website when we are done. We will be sending out a link to its location at more.thomasmore.edu after the presentation, so you can go watch it or share it with others. If you find this talk engaging, or if you think it asks good questions, please feel free to share it with everyone else in your community. Secondly, I want to just quickly go over the structure of the talk. Our speaker is going to be making a presentation, and after that we will be having a Q&A section. The chat for Zoom is open, and I want to encourage you throughout the presentation to submit questions so that we have material that we can use to make sure that you are represented in our Q&A. I want to make sure that your questions are being answered here. And without any further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our More Talks guest speaker for today, Brian Ruschman. Brian is the president at C-Forward, which is an information technology company based in Covington, Kentucky, that offers consultation services to small and mid-sized businesses. He's actually a Thomas More graduate from class of 2000 with a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Information Systems and has over 18 years of experience with computer networking and is currently president of C-Forward since August of 2017. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here and talk, today to the Thomas More community and to everybody else that's on here.
Well, we're very excited to have you. And August 2017, that means you're coming up right on 3 years of being president just about now.
Yeah. It's I've been at C-Forward now for about 14 years and had some different titles along the way. Got my degree from Thomas More, like you said, in 2000, and was a programmer for a while, but have since developed more onto the management side of things now with C-Forward, and just love it. It's just a great place to work and great place to be.
Well, it's fantastic. We're really excited to have you with us today. You are going to be talking about cybersecurity. The title of your talk is Cybersecurity Concerns for Remote Workers and Their Companies. Whenever you're ready, I think we're set to go ahead and launch right into your presentation.
That's terrific. Great. Everybody can see the screen, I hope. And, first thing I want to point out, Brian Ruschman 2000 definitely sounds like a cyborg type of robot. And I just love the year that I graduated because it makes me definitely sound that way. Anyway, let's get into it here and talk about what's going on, in the world in general. We're all working different now. It's tough to be diligent. It's tough to stay in front of some of this stuff. Companies like C-Forward are at the forefront of it every day. And it's important that we make sure that everybody stays secure for our client base and compliant with what they're doing. Because right now, hackers are absolutely salivating at what is out there. People are in new work environments. They are using new tools that they may or may not be familiar with. And they're working on home networks as opposed to one area where everybody was concentrated in the past. Now it's spread out, and the way that they get their information and the way that they utilize the technology in front of them is so important, but making sure that it's protected is also right there. It's a perfect time for phishing. It's the perfect time when people have their guards down for folks to try to get into networks. And like the first bullet point says here, now is the time for you and your employees to be diligent. It's estimated that about $445 billion every year is lost to hacking. $445 billion goes straight to hackers that retrieve information and different data and then sell it. So, taking advantage of major news events, popular brands, hottest gaming, the trends that are going on around the world is very popular to give their malware a better chance of success. They're not above preying on people's fears and uncertainty, which explains this explosion in attacks and scams related to COVID-19. Emails we're sending, pretending to be from Centers for Disease Control, pretending to be from the World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization has seen a dramatic increase in the number of cyber attacks and its staff and email scams targeting the public at large. 450 active email accounts were hacked at the World Health Organization and were leaked online, along with thousands belonging to other, the coronavirus response, in trying to get you to actually make donations to fake COVID-19 initiatives. They weren't really going there at all, but the websites look legit. So I alluded a little bit to the compartmentalization of secure workplaces. Everybody being spread out, working on their home networks is a disaster. It can be a real problem. So we'll get into a little bit about how to protect those things. And, I think that the playground for hackers is just a lot larger now. Employees are at home. They're at home with kids. They're at home with their spouses. They're at home with their pets. The increased stress due to lost wages. It all adds up to letting the guard down and exposing their company. Just different things going on, things that they're not used to. Along with, stress of lost wages, there's also a greater risk for insider wrongdoing. People that, are willing to make bad decisions to compromise company maybe for their own benefit. That is a real thing now. And it's not that it wasn't a real thing in the past, but now it is definitely at the forefront of what's going on. So you have to have checks and balances. You have to have things in place to make sure that that's not going. Ensuring that COVID-19 communications are coming from one trusted individual. We did not see this at the beginning necessarily as being very important, but over time it has evolved to where that is necessary. There's so many things out there. Your employees are working at home. They might have the TV on to a news network all day long and being fed these stories of what's going on and how to prevent it. We have found that management in any company giving out information from trusted sites, overall arcing, remedies to things is much more beneficial than employees going out on their own and finding the news. There's certain security sites that we like a lot that are unbiased and have great information and update themselves multiple times a day. The Homeland Security Newswire. There's a website called Krebs on Security that's really good. Security Watch is one. ZDNet is another one. All very good. Going on to the next slide, security and working from home. Does your employee have a firewall? Do they have updated firmware? Is their home Wi-Fi secure? Is antivirus and anti-malware installed if they're not using a work device? Company and personal machines is a big topic now. Ideally, companies should have their employees using company machines at home, not their home desktop or anything like that. Now, at See Forward, we had positioned our clients a long time ago to select, tablets, laptops, and devices that are more mobile as opposed to desktops. And we still definitely had some taking desktops home during this and stuff like that, especially when they realized it wasn't going to be a 3-week thing, but a 3 or 6 month thing. They were taking their work setups home to their house. We much rather see that than someone using a home computer that gets used for different stuff at night, that the kids are getting onto, that now has new software that ties into your database that you use for all of your client data and things like that. So it's really hard to maintain all of these things, but there are definite steps that businesses can take for the connection back to their servers, back to their cloud solutions, back to whatever they're using. And that traffic between those devices and between those solutions is very important to make sure that everything's compliant and monitored and encrypted, and that there's different authentication in places. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say on that. I mean, ransom payments because of people working at home and using home equipment have drastically increased, about 33% right now, to an average of about $111,000 per attack. So that means that if your network gets compromised and they're holding your data or your information ransom for you to pay them, usually with Bitcoin, it has increased to about 110 grand right now on average. that is incredible. And not only that, I mean, it would put a lot of businesses out of business. Some businesses could withstand that, but some definitely can't. You know, storing data on company servers and not local machines is paramount to making sure that you're in compliance and the things that need to be maintained well are maintained by your staff, and they're not getting anywhere else that they don't need to be. So we talk about remote access methods, and we talk about some that are insecure, questionable, secure. And, you know, the ones that we really don't like to see as much are remote desktop connections, which unfortunately are some of the most popular kinds. So RDP, remote desktop protocol, is something that's been around with Windows for a lot of years. It's built in, and it's not very secure. It's the first avenue that hackers try to get into when they're trying to get information. A lot of companies don't have built-in strong password policies. When they don't have strong password policies, remote desktop is compromised almost immediately. There's ports open on firewalls. Whether or not those are maintained correctly, you know, can really lead to some big problems if they're not. And it's something that we just don't recommend. Now, you'll see under the secure area that RDP does work with certain other things in place. Two-form authentication is something that we talk about a lot. So not only a username and password, but also maybe a PIN or an 8-digit code or something that changes on your phone periodically that you use an app for. So we recommend at C Forward that any business critical application that you log into, anything that holds user data, anything that holds client data, is protected with two-form authentication. So you would go to that site or you would go to that program, you'd put in a username and password. After that, it would ask you for a 4-digit PIN, something that you only know is probably only in your head, hopefully not written down anywhere. And then it would ask for an 8-digit PIN that you could get from your app on your phone. It changes every 30 seconds or so. Does it take you longer to log into those your programs? Absolutely. You know, we never say that security is easy. It is always at odds with convenience. It's going to take you longer to get into that program, but highly recommended two-form authentication nowadays when you're remotely accessing a server for your business or a cloud solution. There's some that are questionable. Log me in, TeamViewer, remote PC, go to my PC. You know, there's pluses and minuses to those. Ultimately, those are all accessible over the cloud, over the internet. They're not necessarily always open, those programs aren't, but if one of those accounts got hacked, they could log into any and all of your devices that have access with those programs. So if you have 5 computers with Log Me In into it, and they get your sign-in information, and there isn't any other protection on it, they then have access to every computer that is under your Log Me In account. I mean, straight data, straight there, and you might not realize it for a long period of time. I mean, it might be something that flies under the radar for you for a long time. Meanwhile, they're in there doing stuff and gathering data and copying things and doing whatever they need to do to basically exploit what you have. You know, VPNs are tried and true. Been around forever for businesses. The licensing and when the pandemic started, a lot of folks went to that. You know, if they had a good firewall in place already for their business and clients or employees are remoting into servers that were in their building, VPN was the way to go. You could get licenses quick. You didn't have to change any hardware, relatively cheap, and absolutely necessary. So two-form authentication is just kind of the next, I don't know, the next technology after that. But VPNs still have a great place in business. I would imagine that a lot of you use VPNs. They're still pretty popular. You know, hardware, we talk about hardware and what's going on right now. Some laptops, especially business-grade laptops, they have a much higher lead time. It's gotten better over the last few weeks, but they can be very hard to get still if you want certain ones. Now, you could go to Best Buy, you could go to certain places and get them, other ones, but there aren't some features that a lot of businesses like based into those machines that are more geared towards home users. Webcams are like tough. Like if you want a separate webcam right now, the last number that I had was about 200,000 units were back ordered with a company like Logitech or, the major manufacturers of webcams that you think about 200,000 units are back ordered right now. So long periods of time and wait if you need something like that. Mobile devices in general, making sure that your workforce has the tools that they need, are all experiencing longer lead times right now, but are available typically. We talk about collaboration tools. Right now we're using Zoom. Zoom made the news at the beginning of a lot of this and has since made a lot of changes to their platform and security. But these are all solutions that we recommend using. They all have their own little niche. Discord, GoToMeeting, WebEx, multifunctional stuff like Microsoft Teams is very popular now. Teams is a collaborative tool for businesses, and a lot of businesses are going to it because it's free with Microsoft Office 365 and a lot of the subscription that they're already paying for. Teams is included, so it's a very popular thing that C-Forward's deploying a lot right now. Works very well, has a lot of functionality, ties into Outlook, makes calendar scheduling pretty easy. Slack, Blackboard, Basecamp, they all have their own little niche. Blackboard's more towards education, and Basecamp is a collaborative tool to keep everything kind of in one place. But those are all good tools. I'm sure you guys have been getting plenty of invites for Zoom meetings and stuff. I know that's a big part of everybody's life now. So I wanted to share some screenshots with you about the dark web, credentials, some of the stuff that's going on out there. Some of this stuff's pretty interesting. And this isn't to put the fear of God in anybody or anything like that, but it is to let you know and to educate you that this stuff is out there. This is a screenshot of a dark web guy that was having a good 7-month period here. So if you look at the bottom, this is over 7 months. He earned $288,000 by himself and exploiting dark web records that he sold them with Bitcoin. So this guy was averaging, 50 grand a month, thereabouts, selling dark web records. Pretty amazing. If I go on here to the next one, this is actually a marketplace where folks can go to get sign-on information. So off to the right, Wells Fargo, you can buy 25 high balance Wells Fargo bank accounts with social security numbers and other information. And you can buy them for 1 Bitcoin, and it has the text in there about date of birth, address, telephone number, driver's license number, workplace, bank name, bank location, all of that for sale. With this pack, you will make hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is why it is not cheap. So that's what the last line says there. It's a game. It's an absolute marketplace that is a game for these folks. And there's a lot of money to be made for them should they do this. I mean, you see over on the left, hacked Walmart accounts from $10 per record. That could be a username and password, an email address, a mother's maiden name. It could be anything with a Walmart credit card. Same thing with Fidelity and SunTrust and Chase, which is obviously one of the biggest ones in the world. $28 for a record. All the different payments they accept. Their rating. I mean, it's like eBay. It's like their rating of how they've done in the past and whether or not you should do business with this, criminal.
It really does look like, it looks like a standard user website. It looks like, any online marketplace. I think that's our perception. I think a lot of the time of the dark web is that it is this closed off sort of underground code heavy environment, but it's advanced now from what you're showing to the point that it just looks like any regular marketplace.
Yeah, it does. Here's just another information about Walmart. You'll see down on the left, it's a username, which is their email address, the beginning part of their password. They give you the full password after you pay, the different Visa accounts that have been tied to it, their expiration dates. Hey, please note the CVV code does not come with this account. Only the credit card. Those accounts are, you don't have to put that number in when you swipe a card or it reads a chip at Walmart. but this is what this looks like. It has the Bitcoin down to the 0.000163 of what it costs per record. Email formats of the data that comes across, their mortgage account, the different cash in that, all kinds of stuff, man. It's just, it's out there when you get hacked. I like to show how to spot phishing emails. Phishing is still the #1 by far way that hackers get information and get your, get your data. You get something like this. It looks like it's coming from Outlook. They got the logo. It looks official. They got a get started button. You hover over that get started button though, it shows jaguarwalls.com/wwj.htm. That is obviously not a Microsoft Outlook or anything legit website. At the top, the email address, it says a Microsoft Outlook address, but it ends with 6.geving.com. There's no way that's legit. That is something that you should block, delete, get rid of right away. But what people see is, oh, I use Outlook. It's a big get started button right here. It says that I need to validate my account to ensure it won't be deactivated. I got to have my email. This is important that I do this. Get started. And once you click on that, it's done, man. Like, you don't have to do anything after that. Now, some sites will take you to another site where they make you sign in, and they're asking for usernames and passwords. And the site looks identical to a Microsoft site. But when you type in your username and password, it does nothing. It just stares at you. What that is you typed in your credentials, and they now have record of it. They know that password. They know your email address. They know that you probably also have an Outlook account. So there is a lot of websites that are designed. They have the exact same logos, but if you're not looking at the URL at the top in the address bar, or you're not looking at these different links before you click on them, just huge things to look out for. Just huge things to look out for. The next one, PayPal is a huge one. Ties to people's bank accounts, ties to a lot of stuff that they want, that hackers want. This site looks secure. It's got the green padlock in the upper corner. It's got an HTTP address. That S stands for secured. But you can tell when you look at that address that is not a real PayPal address. It's at the beginning, paypal.com, web-paypal.com. There's a whole bunch of other stuff after that. Opencase.net, all that. You can be assured that if you are going to a PayPal account, it's paypal.com/something. This has a bunch of other things there. It's telling you that we want to make sure you're the owner of this account because somebody logged in from Romania. Well, you obviously are not in Romania, and nobody you know is in Romania. And man, I got to recover my account right away. You'll see the broken English on the button, recovery my account. I mean, that is stuff to look for. If you don't look at the address, that button alone should tell you that. And obviously, too, we run into folks that don't even have a PayPal account and will still click that button. Definitely don't. If it's not something that directly applies to you, not a service that you use, not a bank that you use, not, anything like that, it obviously is fake. After you look at these other things, you would know that. This is what just I alluded to, the secure site, but that is obviously not a Facebook address. The only thing they have in there that even a little bit resembles Facebook is FB settings-recovery.com, which they would never use. It would have facebook.com/something. But you can see the page looks dead on a Facebook page. And it looks like the page that we've all seen 100 times. So they're good. And they're just hoping that you don't pay attention. They're hoping that you just see an email, password box, and a login button, and you just go ahead and do your thing. And at that point, they have your info. So this is just a little bit. I'm not going to read this. This is a little bit about what C-Forward does at the business level. Backups are obviously hugely important. We can roll backups back to the way that were an hour ago. And it's our idea that businesses have something in place, some business continuity plan in place where things happen and they can roll back, not to the way they were a week ago or a month ago, but to the way they were an hour ago. And so we focus a lot on that. We supply a lot of different security programs for our clients. along with anti-spam, antivirus, anti-malware protection. We handle their firewalls, their DNS filtering. Password managers are popular. Dual authentication. I can't say that enough. If you remember no other words from what I'm saying today, is that two-factor authentication, two-form authentication is what it's sometimes called. 2FA is what it's sometimes called. All of that is very important in 2020. It's just nowadays, it's something that is just needs to be in the forefront of everybody's mind to remain secure. Things to do. Thoroughly investigate all emails like we went over. Send any suspicious emails to your IT support department or company. Update all of your devices at home. Run antivirus on all your computers. Change default passwords. Passwords should be easy to type in, but not have to be written down. If you have to write down your password, it's not a good password. We talk to folks a ton about passphrases. Make it something that's coming up that you're looking forward to. For a lot of our clients, they need to change their password every 90 days. And we say, in the next 90 days, are you going on a vacation? Is there a sports team that you're following? I can't wait until I get to whatever. I mean, it's a long password, but people don't realize you can put spaces in passwords. You can make it a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence. You can put an exclamation point at the end. That's going to meet all of the criteria that your business probably wants to have. And it's also easy to remember. It's a goal that you have, So yeah, they shouldn't have to be written down. Password managers are fine. We implement a lot of those for different folks in two-form authentication. Do not trust anyone. If an email, just because an email looks like it comes from somebody in your contact list or somebody that, is trustworthy, you got to look for these other things. Use the same password at multiple sites. We recommend, it's so easy to just use the same password everywhere. But if that one password gets on the dark web, it gets tried on hundreds of sites immediately. And any hits that they get is going to come back to them. And the more you can alternate passwords between different solutions, the better. Don't blindly use public Wi-Fi. It's still something we see all the time. It is when you're most vulnerable is when you're in Starbucks or when you're using public Wi-Fi. Just do not click on an email message right away without first investigating it if it seems at all a little suspicious. And, that's what I got. I'd love to take some questions. This is my information. If you have any questions coming out of this, feel free to email me is probably the best way, or to call me. See forward right now, we're going through some stuff with different clients, and people are really realizing where their IT was and where they want it to go. So, we're super busy right now, and it's great because we're helping businesses. We love to help small businesses thrive and to be productive and to make sure that they're compliant and to make sure that they're protected. So that's what we do. And, I'd love to have some questions from you guys or Michael or whoever.
Thank you so much, Brian. I do have a few prepared questions, but if people in our audience have questions, I really do encourage you, use the Zoom chat here to submit your questions. And I'm more than happy to ask those along with what we have prepared. So let's just start off with, let's see what I got here. Let's start off with what we're using right now. So Zoom has really become a mainstay for a lot of people's lives. I know that I had heard of it before 2020, but I had never really engaged with it to the degree that we have now. Do you have any recommendations for how we can use it responsibly and securely? I know that there have been news stories in the past and they've worked really hard, but where are we right now with Zoom?
Yeah, so Zoom is attractive because of its simplicity and because of its price. There's even a free version that you can use for calls and in meetings that are less than 40 minutes. But over the last 3 to 4 months, they've made great improvements with the security of it. So they were hacked and there was problems at the beginning of COVID-19. There was some password stuff that they changed after that and some encryption items that they changed after that. It still somewhat comes down to the device that's in front of you and how you're using it, making sure that you're responsible with it. But I would say that as of now, a lot of the worries that people had with Zoom, just even a short time ago, have kind of gone away. It's still a good tool. It's what we're using right now. we're not seeing any problem. I've been on hundreds of these in the last 3 months. I'm not exaggerating. I've never had anybody, there were stories of people dropping in and disrupting meetings and stealing screens and doing all kinds of stuff. That I haven't heard of that now for months. It is interesting that when this happened and the use of their tool went through the roof, because it really did show some exploitations at the beginning because it was on the tip of everybody's tongue. Everybody instantaneously knew what Zoom was. If you hadn't heard of it before, you knew what it was, because even if you weren't using it internally for your business, someone else was wanting to communicate with you through it. And it just, was a breeding ground for the hackers. They just gravitated right towards it. So the other recommendations I would have for communications for software, Teams, I just love. I can't say enough about it. Microsoft bought Skype, and they had their product called Link, which was more of a chatting, your old AOL Messenger and Yahoo Messenger and things like that, but for businesses. But it's a great collaborative tool that you can use across multiple divisions of your company. I mean, it's built for business. So your accounting department can have one area, your HR department can have one area. You can share files. It ties into Outlook. It's tools that you already use. Plus, you can click one button and make a phone call to one of your coworkers or to somebody that's even outside of your organization via an email address. So it replaces a lot of the in-building phone systems that companies had, aren't as necessary now. And it's great when you're working from your house. So Teams would be my second option for sure.
Yeah, we've had great experience with Teams as well. I really do like the way the functionality has worked for us so far. Moving beyond just what we do with our work computers, more and more our lives are composed of a pretty diverse number of devices that we use day to day that all connect with each other and all connect directly to the internet. So we talk a lot now about the Internet of Things and how that changes the way that security works. Do you have any advice for how to be security conscious when you're connecting your phone or connecting either any kind of Internet of Things items?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things is to make sure your access point, your house, your router has a password on it. We still run into so many that are just wide open. To the neighbors, to people parking outside in your street. And if they can get onto that router, that access point, the bandwidth of those devices has grown exponentially over the last few years. So where it used to be that you had to have these different devices, or you had to have your laptop sitting close to the device. Well, now these devices can cover entire yards, all the way back to neighbors' houses and all the way into the street and all kinds of stuff. And because of that, which we all want, right? We all want that functionality, but it's just easy to take those things out of the box, hook them up, get on your laptop, and start cruising the web, and do your banking and do your grocery shopping and all these other things. And when that happens, there's problems that arise from it. So I mean, I would say that it starts there. It really does start because all your devices connect to that, right? I mean, if you went down a list right now and thought of all the devices in your house that connect to those routers, how many would you have? I mean, most TVs do now. I mean, your Amazon Echo Dots that are all over your house do. I mean, speakers and all kinds of things connect to that router and to the Bluetooth, and it's all this web of what it is. And you'd really be surprised when you started writing down how many iPhones, iPads, tablets of any kind that you have connected to them. What could all be susceptible to hacking. So it starts with the router. It really does. Having a good password on there is real important. You can have, most of them now, even the home grade ones, you can have a guest network and you can have your private one. So you can have a password that you give out to people when they're at your house or whatever, to your friends, so that when they come over, they're still on your Wi-Fi or whatever. But I would keep them separate from the main password that you use for everything else. I consult with somebody to set it up if you don't know how, right? I mean, a lot of them now are app controlled on your phone, and they're pretty easy. I have Google Home Wi-Fi at my house. I love it. I never have to reboot the devices. It's a great solution for my house and where I live.
Yeah. I know that that was something that was really important for me when I moved recently and we set up new internet. I wanted to have that guest password because that was something that was I was thinking about. I moved to a downtown area, you know, a lot of population density. A lot of people can move right by my apartment without my knowledge and have access. So setting up that security peace of mind, not just for me, but for guests that come over to my house
Right.
is really important. But we've talked, Brian, we've talked about a large range of things, and I want to encourage people to keep to ask questions in the chat as well. If you have questions for Brian, he's a great resource. We've talked about everything from two-factor authentication, the importance of that, you know, how to protect your router, ways to think about security and to look for phishing scams. Do you have any resources that you like to direct people to learn more about these kinds of issues? Anything that our audience could use to learn more? Any sites or books that you would recommend?
Yeah, there are some sites that have great information in them that isn't on the necessarily technical side of things. There may be a paragraph or two that kind of talks about the technology, but it more is overarching of, you know, it would be understandable to most audiences. And that's some of the blogs and things that I had mentioned during one of the slides earlier. And I'm going back to the list. I mentioned Krebs on security. Krebs, that's Krebs with a K, Krebs on security is a great one. Always up to date, you know, appropriate for what's going on in the world right now and always. Good links to other stories and things like that. TheVerge.com, I love. It's a little more techy, but really has some good stories about what's going on. Almost all tech sites now, I mean, if you could Google technology resource or technology blog or something specific like two-form authentication do's and don'ts or something like that, and it comes up with quite a few sites. But you know, I would stay away from some of the, if you've heard of it before, I'd stay away from it. In other words, there's great writers out there and people that are independently talking about what's going on now and forever, that have great stories and great experiences, and they may tie back to a news story. You know, CBS News did one the other day that was actually pretty good. I'll give them some credit, but they actually ran a story about how all these Chinese laboratories were attacked, and it was up like 30,000% over this. But these Chinese laboratories were attacked because there's entities trying to steal the COVID-19 vaccine recipe, or however, all the research numbers, all the testing, all that. They're trying to get their hands on that so they can develop their own ahead of time.
And beat them to market.
Beat them to market. So, you know, stories like that are like, wow, okay. So CBS News ran that on the national news the other 2 or 3 days ago, probably Monday. Ran that, and you know, little snippets here and there like that are okay. First of all, if you're working for a business, if you're in charge of any of this stuff, anything I said today is like hitting home. Like, we don't have those things in place, or we do have those things in place, but this other solution may be better. Feel free. I think I'm still sharing my screen. You can, my phone number and email address are on there, and feel free to reach out to me, and we can have a candid conversation about what you got, or you know, what we would recommend. That's number one. So I can be a resource first, but Krebs on security, ZDNet, as in 0 day net, is another great site, I think, that can explain things pretty well. And Homeland Security. Homeland Security is you know, their site is updated multiple times a day with good articles about what's going on and how it changes. Did that answer your question, Michael?
Resources. I've gone to several of those sites myself for updated information, and they can get a little technical. I'm by no means an expert myself, but I definitely learned a lot. So yeah. I'm putting links to those in our chat right now in case people want to check those out. They're great recommendations. And I'll be sure to include your information, Brian, in our follow-up email along with the link to the recording of this. So if anyone wants to share this, if they think this would be useful for other businesses that they work for or know or have a relationship with, or other individuals that they think could learn from it, you can go ahead and share this talk with them as a resource as well. And again, if anyone wants to leave a question, please feel free. I do have one last question for you, Brian. So we've talked about a lot of steps, and I think I already know what you're going to say because we mentioned it earlier. But if our audience can walk away with just one concrete step, one thing that they should go do right now to increase their security online, what would it be for them?
Change your passwords. If you have a password right now that is set to a default, or it is summer 2020, or it is password 1234, go change it. There is a laundry list of about 1,500 popular passwords that hackers attempt first and foremost, that is plugged into software, that is automatic. If it is always the season with the year behind it, so popular. Summer with a capital S 2020. Then you're going to change it to autumn 2020. Then you're going to change it to winter 2020. You know, if you have something like that that is easily guessable, or you know, your grandchild's first name with the year they were born behind, I don't know, any number of things. If you think a password could be assumed, you should change it.
Couldn't agree more. We often think about, you know, there will be accounts that we feel are less important, or they're less, you know, they're less, you know, like my Kmart account or my something, like, oh, that's not a big deal. Let me put an easy password in so I don't forget it. But that still, I mean, even those are increasing your vulnerability.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, the mixture of password phrases and two-form authentication is just so important. Two-form authentication obviously is more towards the business realm, but personal, if you're not changing your password, or you're using the same password on 25 different sites, go mix it up a little bit. And if you have to use a password manager to remember those things, or to utilize a software program like that, use a password manager. Do not write them down. If you have to write them down, it's not a good solution. If you write them down and put them on a Post-it, and it's on your laptop, and you go on vacation and it gets stolen out of your car, it's, you know, that's a lot of ifs. I realize I just said 3 ifs right there in a row, but the stuff happens every day. It happens every day.
Yep. Yeah, it's real. The threats are real, and the solutions as well are real and available and actionable.
Yeah.
So Brian, I really can't thank you enough for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for providing us with so much fantastic information.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm happy to do it, especially for my alma mater. And have a great day, Thomas More community, and everybody that was on the call. I really thank you for attending, and hopefully there was a tidbit or a snippet that you took out of this that can have you be more protected.
I hope so too. Thank you, everyone. And again, we will be sending this out with an email link. This has been recorded, and so you can share it from there. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you for joining us for More Talks.
Thanks, Michael.